Welcome into the Solo Shot Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Dom Manna. Happy Solo Shot Saturday, everyone. The 2024 baseball season has officially come to an end, and man, was it a wild ride all the way up until the finish. And now that we're in the offseason officially, back to the Saturday schedule. I don't have to, find recording time around the different playoff rounds. We'll just be coming at you every Solo Shot Saturday right here on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Make sure you like the video, share it, all those good things. And this World Series was really a tale of two parks because if you look at the games that were played in Los Angeles, Game 1 was very competitive, a little back and forth action, and it goes to extra innings. Yankees are up 3-2, and a moment that will be remembered by many from this World Series, and I think is going to be remembered for many, many decades now. Freddie Freeman, first ever walk-off grand slam in World Series play. Unreal. 6-3 Dodgers win in Game 1. And I don't know about the rest of you, but I thought after that game that we were in for what this is. I thought that this series is what we thought it was. A heavyweight fight with really big moments. Everyone has seen by now, they lined up the Kirk Gibson walk-off home run against the Yankees in the 81 series. With the Freddie Freeman home run, it was at like the same time of day. Both went to right field, both hobbled left-handed hitters, like all these different things that just, how can you not be romantic about baseball? And this Freddie Freeman walk-off grand slam was fantastic. It was a huge moment. It was a guy who has been dealing with his ankle sprain and not the most productive bat the first two series. And he finally came alive with some rest and, just the pure adrenaline of playing in baseball's most important games, the Fall Classic. And Jack Flaherty shoved in Game 1. The Dodger pitching was, I think, a little overlooked by most media outlets in this series. I did give the Yankees an edge for depth, but at the top, Flaherty and Yamamoto, I said it, Cole is the best pitcher in this series, but I would probably take Flaherty and Yamamoto over the Rondones and the Stromans and the Clark Schmidts and everyone else that they could throw out there, Luis Hill. So the Dodgers had two solid pitchers going in their first two games at LA, and both of them delivered because in Game 2, Yamamoto had his best professional start. He was money through over 6 innings of work, was getting a lot of swing and miss stuff, was limiting hard contact, and he showed up for the big moment. And I talked about this before the series started, how a storyline that's getting overlooked with all these star bats is the fact that we have the two largest pitching contracts in baseball history in this series, and how one of them is likely to be looked at a lot differently after this series is over, because when you have a pitcher with this major contract and you win a World Series during it, it softens the blow. It makes everything feel better. Whether you're winning Cy Youngs and being one of the best pitchers in baseball like Max Scherzer, or you're struggling and towards the end of your prime like David Price with the 2018 Red Sox, when you have that big contract pitcher, you are expecting him to be a front-end starter on a World Series championship team. Otherwise, why are you paying him that much money? And both of these guys had the opportunity to do that. Cole pitched really well in Game 1, and we'll get to his final start as well. Yamamoto did not start a second time, but his one start was money. His two best professional starts now have came against the Yankees, a start in June and now a start in the World Series. And it's great to get that contract monkey off your back in year one of the deal for both the Dodgers and Yamamoto. if you are saying that spending that $1 billion this offseason on Yamamoto and Ohtani guarantees you a World Series championship, every team that can afford to do so would pay both those players. And it was looking real scary for Yankees fans heading into the games in New York. There was a lot of talk of, the Yankee bats are going to come alive in New York. They built this ballpark for their home run based offense, and they're going to go to work and get things done. The Yankees had the clear pitching advantage for some reason to people because Clark Schmidt, who, his ERA plus in a limited sample size this year was good, very good, but his statistics did not wow me. The couple times that I got to see him pitch this year did not wow me. He's got some good stuff, but he's just a guy. He's a jag. And Walker Buehler, as bad as he's been this year, has pitched some good playoff games in his career, both this postseason as well as past postseasons. So I don't know why everyone was giving the Yankees such a big pitching advantage in game 3. I think as a whole, their pitching rotation was deeper than the Dodgers this postseason because of the injuries the Dodgers had suffered. But lo and behold, Clark Schmidt is out of the game pretty dang fast. He did not have control and was walking batters, giving up loud contact, all the things. And Walker Buehler dealt 5 scoreless innings, strikeout stuff, moxie on the mound. And as a guy who was a huge Walker Buehler fan when he first came up, I was so much of a fan that even when the Dodgers were playing the Red Sox in the World Series, I predicted that the one game the Dodgers would win would be the Walker Buehler start. And although Walker Buehler didn't, pitch a complete game shutout, the game went well into the night in extra innings, where Max Muncy ended it. Walker Buehler was the guy who pitched the most innings in that game for the Dodgers. So he's been really money since he just came up to the league. He's a big game pitcher. He has that moxie and that confidence. It had been a little shaken with the injury and him coming back from it and not being his old self. But Walker Buehler delivered in game 3, and the Dodger offense, just piled on. Freddie Freeman, 3 straight games with a home run to start the series. And then on top of it, his last 2 games in the 2021 World Series for the Atlanta Braves, he hit home runs. So that was 5 straight World Series games with a home run for Freddie Freeman, which tied UConn legend George Springer, who is a very overlooked all-time postseason performer, as the record for World Series play. Unbelievable. 3-0. As we all know, no teams ever came back down 3-0 in a World Series. The only team to do it in postseason history was the 2004 Boston Red Sox. And not to get completely sidetracked by the Boston Red Sox 2004 team, but it was the 20th anniversary of the Red Sox World Series championship, breaking the 86-year curse, the drought, whatever you want to call it. And the comeback documentary came out on Netflix, a 3-part series, really fun for those of you like me that were very small when the 2004 World Series was happening. It gives you some nice insight and some cool moments, some that you obviously are iconic and about, and some that are a little more overlooked. But it was really cool, but it made you think. 20th anniversary of this 3-0 comeback that the Red Sox had against the Yankees in Yankee Stadium. And then they clinched the win on the road. The Yankees, anything is possible in baseball, as low of a possibility as it was. There was a lot of people that had it in the back of their mind. It's just like, could history repeat itself 20 years later, but the Yankees be on the right side of it? And through game 4, Luis Hill gave up a record home run to Freddie Freeman early in the game. And it looked like the Dodgers were on their way to a sweep and that the Yankees were dead. But instead, the Yankees bats came alive. They came back. They saw and they got a win in game 4. And while it was very close, the Dodgers did make it close for a lot of the game. The Yankees did get, some insurance runs and padded the score in that 4th game, to make sure that there was a game 5. I think that was part of the reason why they were gassed a little bit in game 5, is that they put a lot of effort into just not getting swept. Game 5 comes around, and the Yankees bats, it looks like they finally have some momentum, much like the Red Sox did after the walk-off win in game 4 of the 2004 ALCS. The Yankees bats get up to a 5-0 lead. Garrett Cole's on the mound. You have to think at that point, through 4 innings, 5-0 Yanks, that the series is going back to LA. And Rondon's on the mound, and then anything can happen in game 7. But the Dodgers, that lineup is relentless. And I talked about their depth as the reason why I ultimately decided to pick them. The depth of the Dodgers, great at bats from 1 to 9. And they just completely rallied. They put balls in play. And in the 5th inning, that disastrous 5th inning that will be remembered by Yankees fans for a long, long time, Aaron Judge, the obvious MVP, one of the best players in baseball, dropped a ball in the outfield. Anthony Volpe, who was a hero in the previous game, in game 4, hitting a grand slam, had an error throwing to third base where he spiked the ball. That loaded the bases with nobody out. Garrett Cole proceeded to strike out the next 2 batters. Do exactly what you want him to do with the bases loaded and nobody out. Strike out the next 2 batters, so then it's a force at any base, a fly out ends the inning, etc. And he forces Mookie Betts to have a light ground ball to the first base side. And I people have harped on this a lot, but it's true. The fundamentals of baseball, no matter if you're playing Little League or high school or you're one of the highest paid pitchers in Major League Baseball, when a ball is hit to the right, you have to go and cover first base. You have to at least run in that direction. And Garrett Cole had stopped. I think he was ready to celebrate getting out of that bases loaded jam because it was very scary for him. And that would have been a huge moment in his Yankee, 10 years of forcing the game 6 and having a bases loaded jam that wasn't his fault because of errors, and him not running to the bag. And Rizzo, he has broken fingers. He's older. He's hobbled, wasn't able to make the play. And then the momentum shifted in the Dodgers' direction, and the Dodgers were able to tie the game in that inning. Freddie Freeman drove in some runs. Teoscar Hernandez drove in some runs. It's 5-5. Whole new ball game. Start over. And while the Yankees put on a 6 run in the very next inning, the Dodgers were in it. And when it came to the big moments, stealing bases, working guys over, putting the ball in play, the Dodgers did all the little things right. And when Mookie Betts was up with 1 out, runner on third base, he knew he just had to hit the ball deep enough into the outfield. And Verdugo, Soto, Judge, they have good arms, but not amazing arms. It was an easy RBI, and he did that. It ended up being the game winner. Walker Buehler, who I talked about, as having a really rough regular season that shook his confidence, but had some good postseason starts, including game 3 where he was money, gets called upon on short rest to close out the World Series. So happy for him in a contract year to be able to do that. If that was his last appearance as a Dodger, that's a very memorable one for him, and just a really stand-up guy. And this Dodger team, you have to feel great for them. A lot of them talked about it in the post game because there is a good amount of players that were still left over from the 2020 World Series team. A lot of people call it a Mickey Mouse trophy. To me, the trophy isn't the thing that's Mickey Mouse. The Mickey Mouse thing is the awards. because a 60-game stretch versus an 162-game stretch to add an MVP or a Cy Young or a Rookie of the Year to your legacy isn't necessarily as fair as the World Series championship, because all the teams played the same games. The playoff format was exactly the same as it is now in terms of games per round of the playoffs. So all those teams had to play those same games, and the playoff games were heightened. They were more important, and teams were healthier, if anything, because of the shorter season. So that World Series title was earned, but a lot of people didn't give it to them. And it reminded me a lot of when the Astros won in 2022. Because of the cheating scandal in 2017, a lot of people, just disagreed with that title. Was just like, well, this team, they're good, but they had to cheat to get over the top. The Yankees should have been in the World Series because of the buzzer, XYZ, all these different things. But that 2017 World Series against the Dodgers, that was one of the best I've ever seen. It was a really hard fought, well won World Series by Houston, in my opinion. The 2022 World Series was huge for Astros fans because it wasn't tainted by a possible cheating scandal. It was huge for the players that were still around from that 2017 team. Jose Altuve, Alex Bregman, Justin Verlander, all those guys that got a title that people can't dispute. They can't take it away from you. And the Dodgers feel that way. The guys that are left over for 2020 that have heard for years that that's a Mickey Mouse title that doesn't really count. Now they have a 162 game season World Series title. And it's why this episode is called Officially a Super Team. Because you can have the most talented roster of all time in any sport, but if you don't win a title, you can't be called a super team, let alone a dynasty. There's been a lot of dynasty talk already, but the Dodgers are officially a super team with this World Series title. And the fact that they have Yamamoto for another 6 years, they have Ohtani for the next decade, they have Freeman and Betts for quite a while as well, with money to play with. They don't have the top payroll in baseball right now. So if they go out there and get a Juan Soto or sign a Corbin Burns or trade for another big piece, it will not shock me because the Dodgers have never had a great season and not looked to add. Andrew Friedman and the boys, Magic Johnson and the ownership group, they want to win. They know how important titles are, especially in a big market like Los Angeles. And this super team had so many great storylines. Freddie Freeman, like I said, first 4 games of the World Series, hit a home run. 4 home runs, 12 RBIs, hit over 300 in the series. World Series MVP. And I talked about legacy in last week's episode. Freddie Freeman now, legit playoff hero. A guy who has now won for 2 huge franchises with the Atlanta Braves and now the Los Angeles Dodgers. And that grand slam, like I said, is going to be remembered for decades because the Dodgers ended up winning the World Series. If the Yankees made a historic comeback, that grand slam would become a footnote. It would become a fun thing. Oh, yeah, remember this? But because the Dodgers were able to finish the job, because they were able to officially become a super team, Freddie Freeman was able to win a World Series MVP and add to his legacy. All of a sudden, all the big media heads are saying, oh, Freddie Freeman's officially a Hall of Famer now. Have you been paying attention to Freddie Freeman's career? I would have voted him to the Hall of Fame if he retired at the end of the regular season and didn't play a single postseason game. And he still has a few years left to add to that resume. Mookie Betts with his 3rd championship ring. And like I said, those 2020 guys now have a full season ring to kind of offset any talk of the 2021. And he's now won in 2 big markets as well, in Boston with the Red Sox and now in LA with the Dodgers. 3 championships for a guy who, after Mike Trout, is looked at as the best player of that era. Mike Trout has one playoff win, one playoff home run, Mookie Betts has 3 championships and had the game-winning RBI in the clinching game. Shohei Ohtani, highest paid player ever. First season with the Dodgers. First 400 total base season since 2004 in Major League Baseball. First 50 home run, 50 stolen base season ever. Likely to win his 3rd MVP, his first in the National League. And he gets a World Series title. I didn't even touch on the Ohtani injury or the fact that he only had 2 hits. And that's part of the reason why the Dodgers are officially a super team. Because you have Ohtani, who's going to be pitching next year, who's going to heal from this shoulder injury as basically an addition to what you've already built. And this Dodger team was so impressive to me because Tyler Glasnow, Clayton Kershaw, Dustin May, Tony Gonsolin, all these guys are hurt and not available. And you see these guys making an impact for them in the postseason. They're trade deadline acquisitions because of injuries. Michael Kopech pitched some big innings. Jack Flaherty was amazing in Game 1, despite getting rocked in Game 4. In Game 5, excuse me. Tommy Edman, NLCS MVP, and had a really nice World Series too. This is what good teams do. They build an amazing core and they supplement it with the right pieces. And that's part of the reason why Dave Roberts winning this championship puts him on a Hall of Fame track. And the Dodgers, while they're officially a super team, have now the opportunity to go on a dynasty-like run over this Ohtani tenure with Betts, with Freeman, with Yamamoto, with Roberts, and who knows, maybe even Juan Soto. Here at the Solo Shot Sports Podcast, we throw back down the third baseline to this date in baseball history. And, November 2nd had a ton of things to choose from. A lot of them were awards for different, Cy Young and MVP finishes. There was voting being done. For those, the official awards for 2024 will be announced in about a week. But on top of the awards, there were some World Series things. And the 2013 Red Sox, had their parade on this day, and they celebrated at the finish line where the Boston bombing happened. And it was just a really, really impactful parade for a city. Johnny Gomes there at the finish line. I remember it like it was yesterday. And that was a really impactful parade. The Dodgers had a really fantastic parade. It was their first one since 1988 because they didn't have one in 2020 because of COVID. And it was on Fernando Valenzuela, who recently passed away, his birthday. So there's some ties there with the parade. But the Chicago Cubs, in 7 games, broke an 108-year drought on this day in 2016 and won the World Series. And the reason why I said officially a super team and not a dynasty is because, people thought that Cubs team had a chance to be a dynasty. Anthony Rizzo, Chris Bryant in the corners, Javier Baez, Addison Russell as nice pieces up the middle with Wilson Contreras, Kyle Schwarber, a pitching rotation with guys like John Lester and Jake Arrieta. People thought that had a chance to be a dynasty, a team that could win 2 or 3 championships in a short period of time. But they only got that one. But that one was big. It ended a long drought in Chicago, which is a great sports town. And it's one of the best World Series. I'd argue the best World Series I've ever watched was that 2016 World Series between Chicago and Cleveland. Just so many money moments. The Rajai Davis home run. Just amazing pitching performances back and forth, clutch offensive performances. And Ben Zobrist, World Series MVP for not one, but two franchises. He was also the World Series MVP for the Kansas City Royals the year before. So an amazing, amazing thing on this date in 2016 as Chicago became title town again. And the offseason begins. I'm going to save a lot of possible storylines, predictions for next week's episode because there's obviously going to be less to talk about. But the offseason officially begins. Juan Soto is officially a free agent. Garrett Cole has the opportunity to opt out. There's a lot of moving pieces. There's a lot of potentially available players. There's a lot of actually available players. And the trade market, I think, is going to be on fire with this new playoff format and how many teams were in it up until like the late weeks of September. I'm expecting it to be very busy. I'm expecting teams to be chasing the Dodgers, and it's going to be a lot of fun. And you'll be getting all the updates and opinions right here on the Solo Shot Sports Podcast. I appreciate you guys, everyone in the chat, spending part of your Saturday with me. I hope you guys have an amazing weekend. Enjoy the off season. We have some weeks between now and more baseball, but I'll be here keeping you occupied. In the meantime, make sure to like the video and share the podcast with a friend who loves baseball as much as we do. I'm Dominic Manna, and I'll see you guys next time.